And so those were a little bit of an example of the Internet Health Report, just what we're doing at Mozilla. I have two stories that I want to cover, and then I actually want to pass it over to the two people sitting beside me. So I'll go through them fairly quickly. At Mozilla, we talk a lot about, one, helping support local organizers, but then advocating for the rights of people online. And we do them both, and we do them globally, so there's a lot of work that goes into both of those sort of stuff. And I want to share two examples on how we're doing each one of those. One in particular, I really wanted to share because it's been coming up all day for me, and yesterday and the day before, is sort of the accountability piece. So how do we how do we hold the organizations accountable to helping us online or protecting us? And so one of the things we launched on the advocacy front is a huge campaign against Facebook. Again, sounds kind of harsh, but an advocacy campaign urging Facebook. We've launched this in the last few weeks or a month, so as you know, it's been mentioned many times, obviously Cambridge Analytica, there's a lot of stuff that has come out that has made people very conscious of how Facebook has been using individuals' data. So a few weeks ago we launched one campaign, which was a petition, and it was asking Facebook specifically to be more open and clear and communicate how they're using individuals' data or friends' data through third-party apps. And so that's pretty much what we were targeting, was that one thing. How do you be clear and share? And so what we done, we released the petition. Within, I think it was like a couple or few weeks, 75,000 people signed it. And what was a huge win was that Facebook is actually changing the way that stuff is handled online. So for us, as we talk about online organizing, that's a huge piece to actually hold organizations accountable and put pressure on them to actually see real life changes. We have another petition right now with Facebook, and I will tweet out the link to it, but it's asking them now to have more lean data practices, to not just opt in people as it relates to their data online and on Facebook, and as it relates to the internet, because right now Facebook is using that data elsewhere. So we have been releasing this petition, we're getting signatures, we're trying again to put pressure on Facebook, and we're going to continue doing this. Because there's a lot of accountability that we as an organization at Mozilla and other people really have to do to put the pressure on and make the changes we want to see. And so that's one on the advocacy front. And then the second example is we've been working on an education program with the partnerships in Rwanda. So there's been a huge education push in Rwanda to make it a digital literate country. Has anyone heard about that or know what's going on there, like Smart Rwanda? Yes, okay. So we've been working with a few partners, specifically the government of Rwanda and Digital Opportunity Trust, to say how do we make this country, albeit it's a smaller African country, so it's a little easier to say country, how do we make this country literate, and what do we have to do? So what we've been doing at Mozilla and Digital Opportunity Trust has been training ambassadors, young youth in the community, about 40 to 100 of them. We're going through phase 1, 2, and 3. We've been making sure that we're training people to be able to go out into the local communities and actually teach people what they're doing on their mobile smartphones, making sure that they know the internet is more than just Facebook or WhatsApp, and then how to use it, what to do with their local businesses, what they can learn about it, what they can put online, what they can share online or take from online, what they can collaborate with women in rural areas. And we have hundreds of these clubs now in Rwanda really working on making the people literate and understanding what they can use and leverage with the internet. And so we're seeing things like communities gathering, being able to teach each other, and also collaborating in a way that they haven't been able to do, and do these completely new projects that are both online and offline. One of my favorite examples is there's a community that's created a pig rearing business. I don't necessarily know what pig rearing is and how they've been able to do it, but what they've been doing is creating this group where they can connect and learn about it from other parts of the country, how others are doing it. Then they're putting their businesses online and actually talking about it, and then they're actually fueling the economy, their local area, with money by selling these pigs and doing work with them. And so you're seeing these economic developments because of the internet that are just huge. Okay, so that was a lot. So that's a lot about what Mozilla is doing. You know, a couple projects as it relates to both holding organizations accountable and projects we're doing locally in Africa. And I want to pass the mic and ask some questions to my two friends here. And there's a reason that I picked Ifram and Chioma to represent, because they work closely with Mozilla and the work that we do. They've been great friends and allies and contributors to the mission of creating a free and open internet. And they represent the two examples locally in Africa of how to do that. So they represent both the how do we do that on an advocacy side, working with institutions, the government, civil society, and then, which is Ifram, and then how do we do that on the local organizing side, working locally in the communities to actually create change on the skill levels and all that sort of stuff, which is Chioma. And so those are the two sides I really want to dive into. And I'm going to start by just asking them a few questions, and we can create a dialogue. And then also, if you, just a reminder, because I know a lot of people joined, we are wanting people to write down suggestions and opportunities from the last 2 days of how to make a healthy internet. So if you have ideas and actual action items of ways we can do that locally in Africa or in your country or community, put it down on the post-it note. We're going to get people who want to save them at the end and after the question period, and submit them so we can have a track record of all the ways we're seeing opportunities from this past 2 days. Okay, so I'm going to start with my first question over here. So I did mention your name, but please reintroduce yourself. Talk about what you're doing in the local community, and how is the work you're doing contributing to a healthier internet in Africa? Let's start.
Hi everybody, I'm Chioma. I run Mozilla clubs in Bauchi, and I also founded the STEM Test Initiative. Okay, actually I launched the ATBU Campus Club in Bauchi, and actually something caught me with Mozilla. I like the fact that they wanted to engage people, they wanted to make the internet open and a free resource. And I learned something from my own self as a developer. I'm a developer. I'm a programmer with ATBU, with Federal University in Bauchi. So while I was growing up becoming a developer, I used fake software, as in I used pirated software. I cracked them and all that. Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. Let's be real, right? Am I lying? So, I want to be real, and it was because of the price. When the first time I wanted to buy, I wanted to know the price of an OS. It was 13,000. I was just in year 2 or year 1. Then I was really desperate to get a PC. So, well, that's the easiest I could get. Someone just gave me a cracked one, 200 naira. So I took it. You know, it's easy. But over time, I've learned, so I started using Linux actually recently, because I realized something. We need to collaborate, we need to learn to, I've learned from open source, I've gained from open source. And when I saw what Mozilla does, how they, through the clubs, people's skills are built, people contribute, I was really fascinated and I wanted it to be in my community. And I'm able to teach people come to meet me and say, mentor me. Fine, then join the club, that's just it. Then I also, for my part of the country I live in, the culture is quite conserved, and I'm a woman, so I get people take my daughter and mentor my daughter, so it gives me a better leverage. Last year I organized a female hackathon at my university. It was not really, the turnout was not really good, but I was able to get some people and pull them into the club and train them. And but what the part that brings Mozilla in is the part of contributing, engaging them, including them. We don't have so much resources that represent us, even on things like Wikipedia. It's really low. And these are things people can do. They can write their language. They can write, these are things they can do. So that's what I'm doing right now. So the STEM Test project takes me to secondary schools. So when I get to secondary schools, I introduce them to Mozilla clubs too, aside the STEM, for those that are passionate about anything digital or web. So we use the opportunity to give them the web literacy and all the safety online things we do. So just through the STEM Test project, we reach out to secondary schools. We have volunteers using the NYC groups. And for those of you that are Nigerians, we use NYC. We got a recently, late last year, we agreed with NYC, and a lot of corporates are very interested because they learn. We train them, they learn too. So they go with us to these schools. We just train them, they go to the schools and start training these people. Then we open them to opportunities, to labs, computer labs, they learn, and some of them start contributing. So this is what I do. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. How many of you are sleeping because the lunch was so good? My name is Ephraim Kenyanito. I am Kenyan and I love the internet. I work at Article 19. It's a global organization where we fight for freedom of expression and information, online and offline. And in Africa, we have presence in 3 countries with staff and offices in Kenya, working in Eastern Africa, 14 countries, in Tunisia and in Senegal. And we try to make sure that the internet and freedom of expression, both online and offline, is guaranteed. So for me, I work on the online bit. I lead the digital rights program for Eastern Africa from the Kenya office. So whenever you're in Kenya, ping me. Yeah, Twitter to me. Yeah, so Article 19, we have been working mostly on policy to try and make sure that the internet is open. And I'll give the 3 levels of policy that we work in. At the grassroots level, what are our journalists, our bloggers, our users, our community people that we've trained on freedom of expression issues telling us are the priorities? Regional, what is important at the regional and national level, and then at the international level. So sometimes you'll find our countries, and this is very common in Africa, where our governments say this at the international level, at the UN, we are committed to providing this. But then coming to your country, they are still jailing journalists are disappearing, but nothing is being done. So we try as much as possible to hold them accountable to their commitments at the international level, and hold them also accountable to their what the constituents are saying, and also hold them accountable to what the national and regional instruments hold them accountable for. So I'll say some of the tools that we use. So that's the strategy, the 3-pronged strategy. One of the tools that we use is the Universal Periodic Review, which is the UN every 4 years reviews a country and holds them accountable. You say that you're going to follow human rights, but then you haven't been doing this, and it's open for every person and every organization, NGO, to submit comments to the UN Universal Periodic Review. Accountability, going back to your issue about accountability, holding the governments accountable. And then at the African Commission has, every African Union member has a review at the African Commission on Human and Rights, holding them accountable. Which is happening this week in Mauritania. We have some of our colleagues there putting to task the Eritrean, the Rwandese, the governments that we work with, to task their commitments at the African Union and international level. And then at the national level, courts, working with governments, working with ministries to hold them, to make sure that they respect freedom of expression online and offline. And I'll give the example of courts for the Eastern Africa. I'm not going to talk about the MENA region, the Tunis work and the Senegal work, but this is just an example of what we have been doing, and we need more partners to work with on this. We have around 6 cases that we've worked with, and most of them we've won on different issues, from privacy, access to the internet or access to information, security issues, business and human rights, and freedom of expression in general. So I'll give a story from last week. So this is a case we've worked on for the last 1 year. So last January, the Kenyan Communication Regulator required all ISPs and telcos to install devices in their systems to quote-unquote detect if they are fake phones in the networks. The telco people, when they received this order, they were so scared. What is this? What are we going to do? But the good thing, having built that relationship with them, this is where I was talking about collaboration, working beyond our silos, because sometimes civil society organizations, we work in silos. They leaked these documents to us that, hey, there's this memo we've received, and we don't know what to say about it. And we decided to raise awareness about it. And first, they refused to admit that they said that was fake news. One of the Mozilla Internet Health documents that you're seeing trends, governments criminalizing fake news online. They said this was fake news, but then later they admitted, went through court, and we had a big win last week where the courts declared that that device or that invasion of citizens' privacy and security was an affront of their constitutional rights. And this is a big win to me and to my team, because this is a trend that we're noticing in other parts of Africa, where governments are quote-unquote installing machines in telcos to detect fake news, to detect pornography, to detect fake phones. For example, Guinea, for anyone from Guinea here? Guinea, the government was pushing telcos and to install devices to calculate taxes. So, how many calls have been made, how many texts, how long was the call, and this, to some extent, would collect other data and would be used to infringe on your privacy. So, those are the ways to make it accountable. One other forum that we are continually using, and we'll be curious to have this discussion further, is using, for example, the UN Business and Human Rights Forum, whereby these telcos, ISPs, and big tech companies such as Facebook, Google attends. For example, in Kenya, you can't get a meeting with Safaricom easily, which is the equivalent of Vodafone, to hold them accountable on some of their privacies, but some of their policies. But then they attend every year the UN Business and Human Rights Forum, where they make these big commitments, but I mean, at the national level they don't comply. So some of the petitions that we've been working on with the Mozilla team the past few weeks, the past few months, I think this is an opportunity to work with us, Article 19 and other partners who have accreditation with the UN processes, to make sure that there is also that accountability at the UN level, and since they attend there, they are going to sit there and attend, because it's similar to the UN periodic review process and the African Commission process, whereby they have to be there and to be accountable. So that's how we try to make sure that the internet is healthy in our own unique way. Not everybody can do the same thing to make sure that the internet is healthy, but for us, we try to make it healthy from the policy level, because if it's not healthy from the policy level, at the technical level sometimes, you're forced, for example, Uganda, there's the anti-pornography law, which requires the ISPs to install a detection mechanism, a porn detector. We don't know what the tool that is. It's classified national secret, national security secret, but that makes it unhealthy. Deep packet inspection is unhealthy as a practice, and use of SIM boxes is unhealthy when you install them in telcos. So for us, we come from the policy angle, where we try to push back on those impositions, because sometimes policy people are disconnected from the tech side, whereby you are, like for example, for me, before I got very interested in the tech side, my training is legal. I would think a law would just solve everything, but then you come and discover you can come up with a very good law. For example, Tanzania, not very good, but very comprehensive law, but then be able to collect that amount of data and retain it forever. It just can't work. So that understanding between tech and policy is now where we try to bridge that gap and try to make lawmakers, policy people, journalists understand the tech side and the policy side, because we have a mix of those people on our teams. Thank you. I hope this Cambridge Analytica moment is going to be the Snowden moment that we had 4 years ago. I hope this is the Snowden moment, because 4 years ago we had the Snowden moment and not everybody understood why we were fighting whatever we were fighting. But right now we have more allies than before. I hope 4 years later, when you look back, we hope this moment is going to have catapulted our governments to act, and the GDPR. Like these are two moments which the GDPR is the European Union coming up with this data protection regulation, and our governments must act if they want to keep doing business with some of these European Union countries. So I hope these two moments, we can use them and leverage them, especially this year, to push our governments and our companies and our partners to work more on privacy and data protection, security issues. And then the last thing that I would mention is issues to do with business and human rights. The privacy case that we won last week is the first time in court whereby you had the private sector and civil society organizations in the telco sector on one side in an issue. It's a landmark thing that is happening. It happened in Kenya, and we hope to see it more in Africa, because 2 years ago I used to ask myself, or a year ago, when Apple, the FBI tried to crack a user's Apple phone, Facebook wrote an amicus brief, everybody joined Mozilla, everybody joined, all telcos joined Facebook and civil society organizations to write joint amicus briefs on this matter. But then in Africa, telcos are normally very shy. For example, even in Kenya, not all telcos supported us on this issue. Telecom said, no matter the outcome, we are okay with it. Telecom is the former Orange. Orange is very common in West Africa. But then Safaricom, Vodafone, who we've been working on closely, and Liquid among others, were pro-human rights. So trying to get also telcos to care about it. So business and human rights, trying to reform business practices at the local level. Because right now Cambridge Analytica doesn't really resonate with everybody here. Not everybody cares. Why should I care about Cambridge Analytica? But then look at that telco that has your data and sells it somewhere. Or I'll give you the example of this judge who I'm not going to mention, but I've worked closely with 6 years ago. And the judge was having an affair. And the wife is someone very senior in the police department. And the wife comes in the morning to the place where he was, the hotel, and knocks the door with 2 policemen. We've been waiting for you home the whole night. So you've been here. So you see how this, I'm not saying that you did something right, but you can tell how if the police, if the wife was someone who was going to kill him, or someone, a mafia leader like Mexico, he would have, the judge would have disappeared and be killed, and something would have happened, right? So if your telco can just easily hand over your data to someone, and we don't know the intentions of this person, are they going to kill you? Are they going to make you disappear? Journalists have disappeared in parts of the world. No more people have disappeared. Right now, maybe I'm powerful, I'm married to you, and I'm just asking who is he having lunch with? Who is she having lunch with? Like, I don't know the context, but I just follow that person, get his data, and get him killed. I don't have to know exactly whatever you're discussing, but you've had lunch with my wife 3 times. Why are you having lunch with him? So this is something which a trend which we need to think about here in Africa, whereby telcos have powerful people can. Right now there's a trend, and if you're on Twitter, please look it up. Hashtag Ifikie Wazazi. Ifikie Wazazi. So that was last week, but one whereby you as young people, high school or campus students, you go take pictures, photo shoots. You know those photo shoots that young people love taking. You are so in love, and you take those photo shoots, and you hope that you will be memories between you and your loved person, and they will not be shared. But then these photographers have been retaining these pictures and promoting them on their pages. Hey, come take pictures. I take really nice pictures. Look at this couple. They were taking this picture in this position. I can take you similar positions. And this data is being held and being used to promote other businesses, as a part of advertisements. Like right now, I take a picture of you and I use it as an advertisement on the billboard. Maybe you should get some money out of it, or not. I shouldn't misuse that data. So business and human rights, trying to make sure that businesses respect human rights. That's another thing, that's a trend that we can use to make the internet healthy and to monitor the internet.
There's so much to unpack in those 2 statements. I'll say a couple things. So, Ibram, I've heard you talk about the countries that have data protection, and I heard you say it yesterday, I hear you saying it again. It's so important